afternoon, everybody, and welcome to one of our wonderful talks that I couldn't wait for it to happen, and that one is with the Manetti brothers, Marco and Antonio Manetti. As the two of them know very well, it's been 3 years that we are discussing this, and then I guess they had to finish their third diabolic installment so we can present here a full package. But it is really a duo of filmmakers that are so creative, so inventive, and while working with popular and genre cinema, staying true to the core of idea and ideal of genre cinema, and yet expanding it in a way that I couldn't wait that we finally have this retrospective in Rotterdam so we can present it to the wider audiences as well. So I hope you're going to have the time to dive into their cinema and get to know them a bit better, because apart from being the geniuses as they are, they're also just wonderful people. So yay, good bonus points. And they couldn't be in better hands for this talk tonight, not today, this afternoon. It's dark in this room, so I lose the sense of time. And it's with Gianna Nazzaro, who is the artistic director of Locarno Film Festival and a big connoisseur of their work. So please welcome them all on stage, Marco and Antonio Manetti and Gianna Nazzaro. Ciao.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, dear Bania, for this lovely introduction. Thank you, Marco and Antonio, for being here. And thank you, Giovanni, our translator, that will help us along the way, should we hit some bump on the road. I want to start the talk with a small anecdote that is not directly connected to the two brothers, but that has to do with a film that is very beloved by many, many, many cinephiles, which is Toby Dammit. The first time that the name Fratelli Manetti appears in Italian cinema is in a Fellini movie when Terence Stamp arrives in Rome to shoot a film, and he's completely drunk and hungover, and he meets a cardinal at the airport, and he says, and the cardinal greets him, director so-and-so, I want you to meet the Fratelli Manetti. And this is a wonderful moment because it feels almost like a prophecy of things to come. And the first time that I discovered this, I said, oh wow, this is something that only can happen in Italian cinema. So basically, Fellini prophesied the coming of the Manetti brothers, and he was right, obviously. And I want also to thank the audience for being so numerous at all the screenings of their films. This is the first time that the work has benefited from this tremendous exposure in a festival as prestigious as the IFFR, and the answer from the audience has been overwhelming. So thank you for this. It's been a very heartwarming moment to see how a film like Zora La Vampira has connected once again with the audience after 24 years. I want to start the conversation with Antonio and Marco. I'm going to mention them in alphabetical order, so not to create any problems, rivalries. And I want to, first of all, ask them if they could walk us through a bit their family upbringing, how they grew up in Rome, in what kind of context, and how they got interested in movies and so on, because this is always interesting in how then people differentiate or integrate or take off from what they have as a background.
Hello, everybody. I start. First of all, I wanted to say that first incredible thing is when I saw Toby Dammit, I was a kid. And I didn't realize he was saying that. I discovered it much later. I don't know why. You know, before being a director, I didn't realize saying the Manetti brothers. But it's actually what happened. And what is a little bit worrying me is that it's not just a Fellini movie. It's a Fellini movie about the devil, where we appear before. I think the movie is from '68, if I'm not wrong. So Antonio wasn't even born. I was born. I born that year. In January, so I was born probably, but it was really previewing the future Fellini. Okay, we grew up in a, let me say, we grew up in an artistic environment. Our father and our mother our father was a painting restorator, but those were the 70s, when we grew up. They were the years of off theater. I don't know if off theater is the right word. So they were a lot into that that world, and at one point they opened a theater, and they were starting making theater. So when we were young, we used to go to this little theater that was doing off theater, and we grew up there with other kids, sons and daughters of other directors from all Italy, but also all around the world. I remember, for example, there was an American off-theater group called Bread and Puppets that when they were coming to do their show in Rome, they would sleep in our house for maybe 15 days. It was another time, another epoch, and we grew up in that type of free and creative and a little bit crazy, because somehow by our friends we were seen as strange family, people with a strange family. So they were everybody wanted to come to our house to play, because in our house there was freedom and everything was possible. We were reading porn comic books when we were 10 years old. So we grew up in that environment, which I think made us, that type of environment. But we also grew up with parents, especially our mother, with a very good passion for cinema. And there's another thing that I never saw it, like, the porn comic book. Even then, I realized I was a little bit edgy for making children read them. But lately, our mother made us watch Hitchcock movies a lot. So we grew up especially watching Hitchcock. And now someone tells, because comunque psycho, no? When to show it to a kid, maybe it's not a perfect thing. So we grew up loving cinema. We grew up in a theater environment. We grew up in a free environment. And the other two things, I'm trying to synthesize our life, which is difficult. Jonah, you started with a very difficult question. Other two things that I think shaped us is the zone and the condo where we grew up, because we grew up in a very strange situation that I think made us a lot. Because we grew up in a zone that is bourgeois, delle vittorie più piccolo borghese, come si può dire, impiegati. Middle class zone, with two buts that are really important. The first but is very close to Rai. So people that were living there in our zone was very normal people, but the bars and the restaurants around were frequented by film producers, actors, directors. So we started already, and there's not a translation, però in Italian è dare del tu, no?
To be, yet.
They were
difficult.
Kind of being formal.
No, it's more like dare del tu al cinema.
Oh, yeah.
We had an easy relation.
Familiar with.
Yeah, we had a familiar relation with cinema world. We were not embarrassed in front of a producer, of a director. So one important thing. The second important thing is that we grew up in this strange condo, that it was the only condo in this middle class environment that was really, really, let's say, crime class kind of place. So in this courtyard where we grew up, people were playing with kids that were the parents used to go to jail, or it was somehow a low-life type of condo, but in a middle-class area close to Rai. So very bizarre. And to give you an example of that, whoever yesterday have seen Zora la Vampira, you saw it, is that condo at the beginning, Massimo! That one was inspired by our condo. So I think this strange crossroads of different roots, I don't know, let me call them that, made our being a bit strange sometimes.
Sì, sì, aggiungo solamente che appunto, queste radici poi ci hanno fatto diventare probabilmente molto curiosi su qualsiasi cosa, qualsiasi tipologia di musica, di film, di letteratura, di fumetti, e quindi io e lui poi da piccolissimi appunto abbiamo in tutte queste arti, eravamo molto attratti dall'arte perché in qualche modo ci siamo cresciuti dentro. Abbiamo veramente diciamo mischiato quello che si dice spesso, una cosa brutta, a me non piace, però per far capire si può dire cultura alta e cultura bassa, no? E veramente in tutto, e questo forse si vede poi nella nostra vita e nei nostri lavori, insomma.
And I want to add that these roots made us curious about everything regarding music, literature, comics, and still now we are attracted. So we have been attracted and we have grown into it, and we got this kind of mix of upper and lower class kind of background culture. So even though I don't like that too much, but probably it also emerges in our kind of the people that we are, and also in our movies.
I want to add something to this. I think I swear, John, you know us. No? We are not we are not like many of our colleagues. We are not really self-praiser. We talk bad about our own films sometimes, but there's one self-praise I have to do that I think all this, we are very free. And this being free, it gives us great advantages and also problems sometimes, because we are free. For example, every time our colleagues, film directors, they do some like cartel to protest against something, we never really endorse them, because maybe there is one sentence, maybe in one document full of things we agree, if there's only one sentence we don't agree with, we don't do that. You know, we are very free in both ways. And what this freedom really, linking to what Antonio said, you know, really brought us is that I want to correct what Antonio says, but we agree. We don't think exist such things as a low culture and a high culture. It's not like we like them both. We don't know if you get emotion, no? You get a deep emotion watching a Kojak TV movie. No? What make it less important than Dostoevsky? It depends, no? Whatever gives you an emotion is high. And whatever is difficult for you to understand is low in your own perception. So we don't really see this difference between high and low culture. So we don't have problems in putting a high concept, for example, political or social, mixed with a scene of shooting, for example.
This is obviously extremely interesting, because while you were growing up, this is just to give a bit of a broader context, while you were growing up, Italian cinema industry was ebbing down. The genre system that made Italy commercial cinema so great was going down, and the 80s were looming with the commercial TV system just beginning, and then the 80s with the complete ebb of cinema, and then again with the 90s. So you appeared as filmmakers in a very specific moment of transition of Italian cinema, and your work somehow reflects all these transformations, because you are not only filmmakers, you have begun working with video clips, you did so-called web series, you did TV, so you have a 360-degree approach to the audio-visual medium. And this is something that is specific to the filmmakers, and especially to you, that grow at the end of a mythology, the Italian genre system, but also the great Italian masters, and that somehow were exposed to the historical trauma of commercial television in the 80s, where cinema suddenly seemed to be disappearing and then reappeared as TV soap operas, TV telenovelas, and there were these huge debates at the time of what happened to our cinema. So you were somehow born as filmmakers in this very specific time frame.
Yes, it's, I think, totally true. Maybe one thing I don't totally agree ideologically is I don't think that what killed Italian cinema is only the commercial TV, but I think, and here one politically incorrect way of seeing the world, I think that the fact that in Italy the cinema was financed by the state was one of the reasons Italian cinema went down, because when a producer didn't need to face the public anymore. The public doesn't mean, you know, a producer that produces a niche movie is not, is still an entrepreneur, no? It's still someone that faces his own public, even if it's not a wide audience, no? And he has to make a movie that interests his own public. Also, if it's an art house, difficult movie, still needs a public. That, from the 80s, disappeared in Italian cinema. And this killed, of course, some commercial producers, but also art house producers, because at one point in Italy, it happened that to make a movie, it's a little bit changed now. It got better, but there was one moment, that moment that you described when we grew up, that to produce a movie, you had to make a movie that was liked by the statale, come si dice, statale? By a public commission, made of people put there by politics. And in a way, we felt like that was censorship at the contrary. We were not censorship, they will not censor a movie, but they will censor a movie before it was done. Because to write a movie, you should write a movie that they like to make it produced. And I think that was, together with the commercial TV, the cause of all this. And for that, I will give you just a little fact. I remember when the producer, that is the producer that then later produced Coliandro for us, asked us if we had a movie. And we had a script. We brought him a script. And he said, okay, let's do it. And we were so happy the producer wanted to make the movie. No? We didn't understand yet that to make a movie, you should pass through the state. And at one point, he said, okay, I'm doing all the forms to make the Ministry of Culture finance the film. One thing I need from you is a paper where you write why your film is of interest, national, how diceva, interest, national interest. And we were young, a little bit too wide at the moment. We refused. We said, no, we are not going to write this document because our film is not of Italian interest. is against Italian culture. So why do we have to write that? Then with maturity, I learned that the real answer is every film is of interest of Italian culture, but we were not that wise then. And we didn't make the movie. Just to conclude, I wanted to say that Jonah, you made me think, it's true what you said, that in every moment of transition, that type of multi-talented or not specific technically, artist comes. But there's another thing that I was thinking, that when he was describing us in the 90s, we were very similar to what young directors now are. It's like our generation started that multitasking. The directors, the generation before us, if you're doing cinema, you were doing cinema. If you're doing television, you were doing television. If you're making music videos or advertising, instead now they do everything, and maybe we are the first generation, not the first ones.
Sì, la cosa particolare, appunto, come dice Marco, abbiamo rifiutato, no, quel finanziamento, quindi non abbiamo fatto quel film perché non ci volevamo diciamo, scrivere una cosa falsa per noi. Non so se però la cosa particolare è che noi, forse essendo cresciuti appunto in un ambiente di, diciamo, libertà artistica, chiamiamolo così, in qualche modo siamo stati protetti e non siamo, cioè noi siamo arrivati, ora siamo su questo palco a Rotterdam, e per noi è un onore incredibile ed è un coronamento di una carriera, quindi non posso dire, no, che continuerà ancora a lungo, spero, ma non posso dire che non siamo arrivati, no? Però l'abbiamo fatto molto lentamente perché abbiamo tenuto una costanza e una forza proprio di libertà che volevamo e non ci siamo abbassati a un mercato, perché mentre si produceva solamente attraverso un certo tipo di film in Italia, noi per fare il nostro cinema ci siamo nei primi momenti proprio autoprodotti e abbiamo fatto delle cose che erano proprio quasi non si vedevano, non si trovavano, quindi si conoscevano nell'ambiente i Manetti Pro si conoscevano, ma al pubblico non arrivavano tanto e ci abbiamo messo tanto, continuando a essere coerenti, e piano piano il nostro cinema è diventato anche popolare.
So, indeed, just to go back to the fact that we refused to make this movie because we didn't want to write this kind of false paper stating something that was not true. Also states the fact that we have grown with our own artistic freedom. So the fact that we are here on this stage in Rotterdam for us is also kind of the peak of our career, and hopefully that will continue. We got here slowly, especially because of the strength of our freedom. At the beginning, especially at the beginning, we have auto-produced, so self-produced our movies, and actually it was even hard to find them. And actually, that's the coherence that has somehow characterized our production. That is, exactly. I mean, that's actually what he wants to emphasize.
Sorry, because you started with this route, and it's very interesting for us. You know? We never speak about that, so I don't want to take too much time. But I was thinking, and I never say that, but I think Antonio agrees. We were, in a way, in a strange way, we were spoiled, you know? We didn't chase the money. We didn't, and this made us arrive a little bit slower, but where we wanted to arrive. And it's strange, because usually when someone is spoiled, I want to, in this moment, I want to have a praise to the hippie generation. Let's say, to simplify, no, that our parents were hippies. I'm just simplifying, but okay. Usually, one spoiled kid is the son of a rich family. We didn't come from a rich family, but we were coming from a hippie family where they were telling us that money was not important. So we renounce easily.
No, what you were just saying is extremely interesting, because what made Italian cinema strong is that it was strongly tied to a nation, to a population that was also its critical audience. So there was a dialogue. And in your beginnings, the way you started with the short form, with the episode in the Generazione, or with the video clips, it seems as if you were deliberately trying to connect to what could be the audience of a new kind of Italian cinema. So you were not just shooting in the dark, you were aiming for a specific audience with whom you could have a dialogue, a conversation. And I think this is extremely interesting, and maybe this is the consistency that we can trace throughout all your work, and that keeps it tied as a unity. I don't know if you agree with this evaluation, but I think this is important. This is always, as I perceived your work, that you were not just making films but you were aiming to a specific audience through which engage a larger conversation.
I think that I'm listening to this now, so I'm just trying to think about my point of view. I think that what you're saying is surely very intelligent and very clever and very lucido.
You can say lucid.
Yeah. Lucid, it's very lucid about us. You know us, no? As filmmakers. We know us also as people, but especially you know us as filmmakers. I don't know if there was an instinctive plan, but in our own vision is by chance. This happened by chance. But probably there was an instinctive plan in it, and probably the instinctive plan was in a sentence that we always quote, and that maybe is more important than what we think in our formation. That was in our multiple formation. I think Spielberg is the director that most of them all made us want to make cinema. And we come from that generation, not the generation of Spielberg, the generation where Spielberg was the master, was the director of all the directors, you know? And Spielberg used to say one thing, one sentence that we always repeat. This apparently is banal, is not genial, but if you think about it, it is very intelligent and very deep. It was, I make the film, I make the movies that I would like to see, to watch, which is not that obvious, no? Scontato.
Obvious.
It's not that obvious. It sounds obvious because it was so true, and maybe that's linked to what you're saying. We were looking for our audience, but the audience was us. And that's the difference between, to make the movies that belong to your personal masturbation and the movies that just want to break the box office. Those were the directors pre-Spielberg, those two types. Then Spielberg arrives and said, making popular movies can be a very art house thing, because it's the movies you want to watch.
Very personal, no? Very personal. Spielberg ha sempre fatto film molto personali, no? In realtà, da Indiana Jones a sono molto personali.
Stephen King, no? It's the same type of culture.
So Spielberg has always made very personal movies, like Indiana Jones and so.
Sorry for these things. I speak English, but I prefer to speak Italian because maybe I am more. It's okay. It's strange. No, volevo dire sì, la cosa strana, perché infatti voi magari non essendo italiani non potete capirla molto bene, no? Oppure succede anche qui in Olanda, è probabile, molto probabile, perché l'Europa alla fine è simile. E il fatto che noi appunto ora siamo arrivati al punto, cioè parliamo di tutto questo, della nicchia, del basso budget, il mercato italiano, registi particolari, in realtà noi non ci sentiamo particolari, no? Noi facciamo dei generi di film, ne abbiamo toccati tanti e continueremo perché siamo appunto curiosi, come dicevo, artisticamente, quindi toccheremo ancora tante cose, tante storie. In realtà facciamo delle cose che in altri continenti sono le cose che fanno successo al cinema, sono le cose, tra virgolette, commerciali. E quindi noi quando proponiamo un film, proponiamo un thriller, un film di zombie, un film di fantascienza, in America era quello che i produttori cercavano. In Italia è quello che i produttori ti prendono per pazzo, proprio per pazzo. Vuoi fare un film di zombie? Cioè, è una follia. E in quel momento in cui noi proponevamo film di zombie, c'erano solo film di zombie in testa ai box office, no? Sì, agli incassi. Quindi la particolarità sta là, no? Un po' l'Italia sta un po' cambiando, ma insomma ancora non tanto, siamo ancora un po' strani.
So what is the strange fact here, and you may not understand it because you're not Italian, or perhaps you understand it because that's the same that happens in the Netherlands, is that when we talk about movies that are niche movies or low-budget movies, and we say that we are special people, strange people, actually we do not feel ourselves strange or peculiar. We have done many things and we'll do many more because we are curious artists, but actually what we do in other continents is something that is mainstream. So for instance, when we propose movies about zombies or fantasy movies. In the US, that was mainstream, that was common. And in Italy, at that point, they were considering you like a crazy person. So why do you want to make a movie about zombies? So that actually it's a bit what, how to say, what makes us special and what makes actually Italy or Europe special in that sense.
Since you mentioned producers, allow me to make a flash forward. You worked in, if I'm not mistaken, at least 3 films with Luciano Martino, who at the time, before you came along, was somehow a forgotten gentleman from Naples who had made films throughout the 60s, the 70s, came from a very noble cinema lineage. His grandfather was one of the masters of Italian silent cinema, who shot also the first sound film. And then during the 80s and 90s, somehow he focused only on TV or on selling the films from his catalogs, which were the cop movies that Tarantino championed, or the sex comedies that Eli Roth championed, and all those films that nowadays get these wonderful releases in the States by Severin, Cauldron, and so on. So then you came along and somehow gapped single-handedly the bridge between a producer who made hundreds of films and has an incredible catalog, and you, and whom you started working with, making a science fiction week-low comedy, a straight slasher film with the brother of Tony Servillo, who, by the way, is a very intellectual pop singer in a very intellectual pop band, and an Italian neo-noir pop comedy in the streets of Naples. So could you, my question is long-winded as usual, I'm Italian, but could you tell how that meeting that was extremely satisfactory and that somehow pushed you forward, and Song in Napoli, I'm from Naples, was also his very last film. So I think this is very interesting. In a way, you bridge that gap with the important part of cinema that was forgotten by the officiality of Italian cinema.
Yeah, it's a complex question, because our relation with Luciano Martino is a complex relation that touches many points. But what I would like to say, first of all, I think that in terms of professional, artistic, I don't know what terms I want to use, Luciano Martino was like a father to us. He shaped us. He made us. We already made films before. We already made TV series before. We already made music videos before. But without Luciano, we wouldn't be what we are now. And he really gave us the road to what we are. He showed us the road of what we are. Because he was all those things you said, but there's one thing that Luciano was that you have to know him well to mention it, which I think is the most important thing when you judge a person. It's not his story, but what he is. Luciano was a very intelligent person, a person of extraordinary intelligence, open in a different way, open, because as you say, he did everything. He did everything. He worked with the Italian authors, he worked with the B-movies, he worked with sexy comedy, he worked with everything. But he was very intelligent, and when he saw us, just in a dinner with other people, he understood us, and there was a dinner with a lot of people who said, I want to meet you, Manetti Bros. So the day after we went to his office, and he said, I can't remember how old he was then, but I was old. I'm old, I'm tired to be a producer, but I can't find money, but I don't want to produce. You know what? You tell me the movie you want to do. I collect the money, I will give it to you, and you will produce it by yourself. This is after a dinner. Just the fact that he understood I could trust us, even on a financial way. No? And this make this incredible collaboration come, and I think we are sons of Luciano Martino in a way, even if he came at the halfway in our career.
Sì, siamo diventati, con l'incontro di Luciano, produttori per forza, cioè lui ci voleva produrre il film, ma ce l'ha fatto produrre solo se l'avessimo prodotto noi, diciamo, avessimo gestito noi i soldi e fatto... Ed è una cosa che noi in realtà avevamo dentro e abbiamo sempre un po' fatto, ma non l'avevamo mai fatto ufficialmente. Renderlo così ufficiale ci ha cambiato tantissimo e oggi siamo anche produttori, soci insieme a Giorgio, che è in sala, non so dov'è, credo. E abbiamo fondato la Monpracem, no? Una società comunque grossa, che funziona, che produce tanto, e quindi il nostro lavoro ora non è solo di registi, anche di produttori. Io credo che se non ci fosse stato Luciano questa parte non ci sarebbe stata, ma anche i nostri film. Adesso noi siamo registi e produttori e facciamo tutto mischiando questi due ruoli e questo secondo noi è indispensabile nel nostro cinema. Non riusciremmo a fare solo i registi.
So the fact that we were somehow forced to be a director, it has something that so it's something that actually we have always made, but the fact that Luciano made it official had also somehow changed us and changed the way in which we have made our professional life. So we actually now we started a production company together with some colleagues who are here. And without Luciano, that would have probably never happened. I always miss the last sentence because I pick up the phone. I must admit.
The last sentence was about now them being also the heads of their own producers company, the Monpracem, which for non-Italian audiences, Monpracem is the mythical island of the pirate Sandokan and his comrades. And every attack against the English colonialists started from Monpracem.
Especially, to say why it's called Monpracem, is that India was totally under the British Empire, and Monpracem was the only island that was free.
Yeah, that's us, and the tiger is our symbol, like the Festival of Rotterdam.
Yes, this is, in fact,
yeah, it's a symbol of our society.
I wanted to say it. Our friendship and relation with the Rotterdam starts from the logo. Tiger is our symbol. Tiger is the symbol of this festival.
Yeah, because Sandokan was called the tiger from Malaysia.
Yeah.
And this is,
volevo aggiungere una cosa sul rapporto con Luciano Martino, perché non solo con lui, ma noi siamo in qualche modo, da tutti questi vecchi produttori, registi degli anni 60 e 70, noi ci sentono molto affini a loro, no? Siamo proprio siamo una grande famiglia di quei cineasti di quell'epoca, degli anni 60-70, soprattutto quelli che facevano film di genere, chiaramente, parlo di quelli, ci sentono i Manetti Bros come un proseguimento del loro cinema, no? Ma questo non è tanto vero a livelli di contenuto, secondo noi, ma più a livelli proprio di come si fa il cinema. Quindi Luciano Martino ha avuto questa sensibilità di capire che noi potevamo riprendere una sorta di cinema appunto fantasy, chiamiamolo, per allargare, no, il tutto, che in Italia non si faceva più, perché riuscivamo a farlo amministrando i soldi noi col basso budget. In Italia per quel tipo di film non si trovava, dagli anni 80 in poi non si è trovato più budget alto, e quindi Luciano aveva capito che con noi si poteva riuscire a fare dei film a basso budget e tornare a fare quei generi, e per questo siamo diventati un po' degli eroi pure, no? Per quel tipo di regista e di produttori che non riuscivano più a fare film.
So just to add something about our relationship with Luciano, so that was true also for other all directors from the 60s and 70s to whom we felt somehow close. We all became a big family with these cinematographers. And oh gosh, I must say that I
wanted to point out that the relationships between them and the producers from yesteryears was not necessarily thematically, because their film dealt with other elements, but with the way they used the budget. And Antonio was pointing out that Luciano understood they could bring home the films on a budget while doing their own films, because in Italy, at the time, the larger budget for the kind of films that they wanted to do, the so-called genre movies, were not around anymore. And this is the reason why they clicked with Luciano, because he understood that they would be able to work on a budget while doing their films.
Perfect. In fact, I wanted to add one episode that at one point we were talking with a producer before becoming producer ourselves. No? There was this idea in Italy that a movie, for example, an action movie, would cost more than a love story. No? And at one point, I remember that we told to a producer, I don't know why you think that this costs more. The only difference is that in a love story, when a person goes to one place to the other, it works. In an action movie, it runs. It doesn't cost more. And this was our philosophy. You know?
And going a bit closer to the financial philosophy of your films, after Zora, and I'm being careful here because I don't want to open old wounds, but after Zora, you did like a U-turn, which was extremely interesting. From the big budget of Zora, from the big actors such as Carlo Verdone, you did a U-turn and did a week-long film shot on digital in an elevator for around 75 euros, and that's it. And you still today consider this one of the most accomplished film in your filmography. This is also very peculiar, because instead of reeling like, oh my God, they don't get us, we don't understand them, we failed, you regrouped and did something on a shoestring budget, unseen up to that point in Italy, and you started off once again. It was like your third time that you debuted somehow.
Yes, exactly. In fact, like Luciano Martino was our father in a positive way. Somehow Zora la Vampira was our father in a negative way. We learned a lot from that movie. And we learned that... I want to try to be short.
I think they want you to be long.
Don't tell it to Marco.
We decided
dangerous.
that we understood that for a filmmaker, I don't want, you know why I'm putting time to say something short, and I put in time, because I don't want to sound like a sort of saint, but it might sound like it, but it's true. That for a filmmaker, freedom is more important than budget. There's no point in having a budget if you don't have the freedom. So we understood that the big budgets, they should arrive to you when you are so powerful that even if the budget is big, you are free. And that freedom, because I don't want to say that the producers, which was Carlo Verdone, of Zora la Vampira, didn't set us free. We had a great relationship. But we felt the expectations. We felt every time that they were spending a lot of money, they were expecting a box office success, and this thing kind of hold us. We were not feeling free, we were not having fun. And I think, I conclude like that, I think a director has the obligation. It's your job having fun when you do your movie. If you don't have fun, you are stealing money. You're not doing your job well. So we understood that we had to go back and self-produce a movie. And I hope, I don't know when is Piano di Cassette, tomorrow? I think that film must be seen to understand us, really. Because with 75,000, which is money which not even a short, you can do that. And when we watch the film, nothing is missing, it's perfect. Zora la Vampira, when you see it, it was high budget, a lot of things are missing. I know you don't totally agree, but...
Sì, assolutamente, questo è il nostro, lui l'ha chiamato inversione a 1, U-turn è giusto, è vero, assolutamente, e da lì abbiamo appunto capito queste cose che ha detto Marco ora, abbiamo proprio capite, le abbiamo proprio razionalizzate nella nostra testa.
Yeah. So, and indeed, that's absolutely correct. That was a U-turn. And since then, we have understood and we have rationalized certain things in our head.
Sì, quindi poi c'è stato, per fare una piccola storia, vado avanti io, ma di poco, insomma, non è che però per arrivo alla Monpracem, no? C'è stata questa inversione, siamo ripartiti appunto dal basso budget, quasi ricominciando da capo, e questi film, diciamo, si sono iniziati a far notare in qualche modo. Abbiamo incontrato Luciano Martino e siamo diventati produttori di noi stessi.
So, and indeed, we have started almost from zero. Those movies were seen, were kind of noted, and since then we have met Luciano Martino and we became our own producers.
E poi un altro incontro fondamentale che abbiamo avuto dopo è stato con Carlo Macchitella, con cui abbiamo fondato la Monpracem, perché con Carlo abbiamo trovato quella via di mezzo giusta, cioè fate quello che volete, vi rendo liberi, quindi vi lascio liberi, qualche volta senza dircelo, però capivamo che c'era questa cosa, però alziamo il budget e quindi in qualche modo le aspettative, no? Cioè andate un po' più in là. A noi ci è sempre spaventato andare più in là, però Carlo ci ha dato il coraggio di farlo e quindi là è nato Amore e Malavita e poi Diabolic.
So and another meeting was with, crucial meeting was with Carlo Macchitella, and he helped us to find this kind of middle ground between I'll let you free, but let's increase the budget, and it was crucial also for our production movie, and that actually gave us the courage, they gave us the push to make the two other movies. So first Amore e Malavita, and then Diabolic.
I wanted just to explain in 2 words. Carlo Macchitella was our associate. We founded a company with him, Monpracem. Carlo Macchitella 1 year ago died suddenly with no previous, he was not sick, he was not, and he left us alone in the dark. Now we have a new associate, that is Giorgio Bellocchio, that is there. And we are less experienced and younger than Carlo, but the 3 of us, we are trying to, with Monpracem, to carry on the road that Carlo showed us.
Well, it seems you're doing quite fine, given that Tiburtino Terzo was a big success yesterday. The audience enjoyed it. In Italy, it fared well. So, I mean, it seemed you are off to good adventures.
I hope so. Tiburtino Terzo, the director is Luna. Is a movie. Is showing tomorrow at the festival. La guerra del Tiburtino Terzo. It's a great movie that we produced, but still with Carlo. He was there.
One feature of your work, I don't know if it gets mentioned enough, is the comedic flair that you have. Your films are always extremely funny. It seems that you are one of the last directors that have kept the secret on how to deal with the actors, of getting from them the lightning bolt strike joke, and also the pleasure of seeing them on screen, allowing them the freedom to express themselves, and especially in the Neapolitan-themed films with actors such as Carlo Buccirosso, but also the younger, unknown actors, you managed to bring forth again this pleasure of listening to people talking, joking, and where does this come from? How did that get rehearsed in a time when you were starting making video clips, which were fast, music, which was loud, and where did you train your ear to listening to actors interact and convey that pleasure to the audience?
I think that the main reason is that we have a ironic look on life. So sometimes we don't think that we are making a comedy, we are thinking that we are making a realistic movie, but since we have an ironic vision on life, it comes ironic, without plan. The plan is we make a science fiction movie, we make, in fact we missed a little bit the irony in when you see the trilogy of Diabolic, it's a little bit more serious because it's taken out of a comic book that is a little bit more serious, but it's still not taking itself too seriously. So I think it comes from there. It comes also from the thing we're talking at the beginning, for the natural freedom that we have, the relation with actors that you say. I noticed that actors and singers, because it's something that we are very proud of. Our movies always brought out successful songs. Singers that maybe they were not doing successes anymore, they did successful songs in our movies, because I think, I hope, I have the illusion that we inspire freedom to the artists that work with us. Another thing, I was looking at Luna here, and I want to say also that Luna and Emiliano, that is you say partner, her boyfriend, her husband, I would say, they wrote their own films, and now we are writing together a lot of things. Wes Palmese, that is the film we already shot, but we are still editing. That maybe today we have a little surprise. We'll talk about it after. We wrote it with Luna and Emiliano, and we are writing other things with them. And while I was talking, I was looking at Luna, I was saying that a lot of times when we write with people, and it happens also with them, even if they are similar to us in ironic look on life, but a lot of times, there's a discussion about, with the writers we write with, on about what is realistic. And a lot of times what we see realistic is funny. And what they see realistic is serious. Not in particular, but I think it happens also with you people. Say, but one cop, I don't know, one cop, for example, one cop, if he sees a criminal, he will bring out the gun. And we say, a cop, when he sees a criminal, is scared. This still is funny in a way, no?
Sì, ma si dice spesso, anche il modo di dire, che la vita è più strana dei film, però alla fine è la verità, cioè tutti i giorni, tutti i minuti, tutte le persone che incontriamo, e tu mettessi delle cose che noti strane di quella persona che hai incontrato ieri, oppure quello che è successo, sarebbe una scena esilarante in un film, e spesso non si fa, spesso ci si censura da soli, no, ma è troppo. Invece non è mai troppo, perché la vita è sempre, noi notiamo quel lato della vita e lo mettiamo nei film.
So actually, as it often said, life itself is stranger than the movies. So if you think about how many times you see people and you put together what happens with those people, if put together, that would be fun in a movie. But sometimes you kind of do a sort of self-censorship and say, well, that's a bit too much. But
ma noi non ci...
No, we don't do that censorship.
Non ci censuriamo.
We don't do that self-censorship.
You brought up the Diabolic trilogy. Let's delve into it. We have here, the audience will enjoy all three films all together in a whole run, like in the good old days. And Diabolic has an interesting backstory. The sisters Giussani, who authored Diabolic, invented it and tutored it for a very long time until the last days of their lives. They were completely dissatisfied with the Mario Bava take, even though it became a cult movie and so on. So what was the key element that managed you to convince Mario Gomboli, who is the chief editor and prime responsible of the publishing house of Diabolic. It's called La Astorina. And how did that come along? I don't know if you have read Diabolic. It still comes out in Italian newsstands. It's a monthly comic book, 2 frames, each page, rigorous story, every story. There's a heist. Diabolic gets away with it or not. Sometimes he doesn't get away with it, but the structure has been the same for how many decades? 6?
60.
6.
Allora, first of all, this is the first time we show the trilogy altogether, and this is one of the few times, not the first time, and we showed it abroad, the other 2, many times, and what we noticed is that in Italy, Diabolic is a comic book, and few Italians know that Mario Bava made a movie out of this comic book. Abroad, Diabolic is a Mario Bava film, and they don't know the comic book. And this is an opposite point of view. But in this case, we are always a bit Esterophile, but in this case, the Italian point of view is the right point of view. Because abroad, many people think that we are making a remake of Mario Bava movie. We are not making a remake of Mario Bava movie. For a lot of time, we toyed with the idea that when we were doing this film, we shouldn't even rewatch the Mario Bava movie that we saw when we were kids. At the end, we saw it, and he also gave us some inspiration, but definitely, what we are doing has no link with the Mario Bava movie at all, because the movie and the comic book are very different. And the Sorelle Giussani, as you said, they were very angry when they saw the Mario Bava movie, and they gave Mario, which is their heir in a way, the power to decide whether or not making a movie or a TV series out of Diabolic. And this brought us for 30 years or not. There's not a yes or not, it was just no. Mario was, we say in Italy, more realistic than the king, but I don't know if it's a way of saying here.
More royal than the king.
More royal than the king, because it was really rigid. No. One day we contacted Mario, not Bava, but Gomboli, and we told him, we wrote 2 pages. It's our take on how we would like to make a Diabolic movie. And he read the pages. He said, send it. I don't have much hope, but send it. I never blocked anyone to send an idea. We sent the idea, and after a few hours, he called us back, and he said, it's 30 years that I'm waiting exactly for these pages. And what was in those pages is simply what the comic book was. There was no particular secret or ingredient. It's just we wanted to bring to cinema, which is another form of art, so with many differences that are just the translation differences, we brought the comic book as it is to the film shape.
And you chose key episodes from an extremely long run. It's 60 years long run. It's one of the Italian comic books. It's in black and white, and it is as...
The comic book and not the film.
Of course. And so how did you pick out these 3 books in order to make the trilogy?
Sì, il primo film è una trilogia, sono 3 film, ma noi quando abbiamo fatto il primo abbiamo pensato solo al primo, non avevamo già in testa la trilogia.
So there are 3 movies, so it's a trilogy, but when we started with the first movie, we didn't have in our head the whole trilogy.
Il primo film, noi pensavamo che bisognava iniziare con, perché Diabolic, che appunto magari non conoscete il fumetto, in realtà è sono una coppia, cioè Diabolic ed Eva Kant. E Diabolic e Eva sono la vera particolarità di un fumetto per altre cose molto simile a cose vecchie che esistevano.
So, for those who don't know the movies, Diabolik is actually about two characters, so Diabolik and Eva Kant, and that's actually the peculiarity of that comic book versus other things that at that time already existed.
Quindi abbiamo pensato che in realtà raccontare Diabolik non si poteva fare senza Eva, e quindi abbiamo iniziato il nostro film, abbiamo pensato di prendere il numero 3 di Diabolik, che dove si racconta appunto è il numero in cui Eva e Diabolik si incontrano, e quindi nasce la coppia che poi ancora oggi è Diabolik. Si chiama Diabolik il fumetto, ma si potrebbe chiamare Diabolik ed Eva Kant.
So when we talk about telling the story of Diabolik, we thought about taking the third book of Diabolik, which is exactly where when Diabolik meets Eva, and actually the comic book is called Diabolik, but it could well be called Diabolik and Eva.
Poi quando abbiamo saputo invece che i film continuavano, ne avremmo girati altri 2, ci siamo fatti un piano più completo in testa, diciamo, e la nostra certezza era sul terzo film, nel senso che il terzo film era importante, secondo noi, raccontare le origini di Diabolik, perché Diabolik è un personaggio molto misterioso.
So, and then when it was clear that we would have done 2 more movies, then we actually made a more structured plan. We came up with a more structured plan. And what was certain in our head was about the third movie, the end movie, that was about Diabolik as a mysterious
childhood.
So about the childhood of Diabolik, because Diabolik itself is a kind of a mysterious character.
Quindi questi 2 erano stabiliti, il secondo invece abbiamo, proprio per raccontare più il personaggio, abbiamo scelto una storia consigliata da Mario Gomboli, tra l'altro, più d'azione, più che in qualche modo raccontava i personaggi, ma che ci fosse più azione nel film.
So actually, the first and the third then were set, and for the second one we chose another book that was suggested by Mario Lombari, and it was a book with much more action. So it was a kind of an action movie.
Yeah, with action, because maybe there's more action in the third one. It's more a heist movie type of action, which is a bit different. Is things that you think is something happening, then you discover something else is happening, things like that, yeah. Rocambolesque. Is a good rocambolesque?
Yeah.
No, without giving it away, there is also an homage in the third episode, right at the beginning of the film, to the cop movies from the 70s, the so-called poliziotteschi.
Yes.
But I don't want to spoil the pleasure for you of discovering it yourself. And in the trilogy, you mentioned before, I mean, for each film features a different song, the musical identity of each film. How did that come together? Because in the third film you worked, for instance, with Tommaso Colliva, who is the brainchild behind the Italian band Calibro 35, who is one of the most popular Italian band in the world. They worked also with hip-hop artists such as Jay-Z, for instance. Then you usually work with Pivio Descalzi, who was the guitarist of Neutrals, one of the key Italian prog bands in the 70s. So the musical identity of these three films.
So the soundtrack is still made by Pivio and Aldo Descalzi, which are one thing we didn't say about us, many things we didn't say about us, of course, but one thing is important for us is that our film crew, which with a wide concept of film crew, not just who's shoot, but also the editor and the musicians, is always the same people. We don't like to change. We are like a theater company more than a film crew. Generally in cinema, one film, the director changes the collaborators. We always work with the same director of photography, the same art director, the same costume designer, the same editor, the same musicians. So Pivio and Aldo Descalzi are still there. and are the soundtrack composers. Then there are the songs. For the 3 movies of Diabolic, we chose 3 different songs, even if the 3rd movie, which is a bit poliziotesco, as you say, is full of songs. But 3 songs are representative, no, of the 3 movies. And by chance, maybe you don't know that, Tommaso Colliva is in all 3. Because Tommaso Colliva is the producer of the Calibro 35 and is like a member of that band. He's a producer, but I would say he's a member of the band. But he's also a producer random of a lot of artists, as you said, also international. And he's the producer by chance of Manuel Agnelli, that made the song of the first movie. He's the producer of Diodato, that made the song of the second movie. And then the 3rd movie, say, Tommaso, you did only the producer. And the 3rd movie, let's put in the Calibro 35, your band. So it happened by chance. We met Tommy when we were working with Manuel Agnelli. Then we called Antonio Diodato. Arrived a message to me of Tommaso. He said, you called Antonio, you know, the producer is me. And we didn't know. But what made us choose those songs? It's important to tell. For us, music is very important in the movies, and the songs are very important. The first movie wanted to be a dark movie, talking about a dark character that is diabolic, no? That was at the beginning is a little bit mysterious. You don't see him coming. He's already there in the world. He's a figure of mystery. And the film, slowly, little by little, unveils the mystery, a little bit, not much. So we had the idea of calling Manuel Agnelli, which I think is royal darkness of Italian rock, is one of the most dark singers in Italy. And already there we did, because we called Manuel, but we never realized Manuel is a singer of a band, After Hours, but we never told him we are looking for After Hours or not. We just called him, and almost by chance, it became the first solo work of Manuel, his first solo song. And it's a great song that the name is The Deepness of the Abyss, La Profondità degli Abissi, so it's a song about darkness. In the second movie, there is an element of romance in the movie. And in the same way, the first movie is dark, the second movie it wants to be very 60s, so a little bit elegant, a la James Bond. And we thought that the most elegant of Italian romantics, Italy is full, no? Is our tradition, romantic singing. But Antonio Diodato, he does it in a very elegant, classy way. So we thought he was the right singer for the second movie. And the 3rd movie was a little bit funky. So we called the Calibro 35 to make they are specialists in funky, soundtrack-like records. But we gave Tommaso this idea. I said, I think there's a voice in Italy, a singer, maybe you don't know him, that he really never worked with funk, but is the funkiest voice in Italy, which is Alan Sorrenti. I don't know if anybody knows him. So we made a team up of Calibro 35 e Alan Sorrenti.
La musica, il commento musicale invece è interessante perché la differenza, cioè abbiamo dato ai film una differenza temporale. Nel primo film è all'inizio degli anni 60, il secondo alla fine degli anni 60 e il terzo pienamente negli anni 70.
So the musical comment is also important because we gave to the movie a kind of difference in time. So the first movie is from the beginning of the 60s, the second movie is from the end of the 60s, and the third movie is definitely in the 70s.
E in questo l'abbiamo fatto anche musicalmente abbiamo dato 3 stili diversi, ma la cosa che ci è piaciuta di più è che per la prima volta noi abbiamo fatto dei film in costume, quindi abbiamo anche sulle scenografie, sui costumi, lavorato su queste 3 epoche vicine ma diverse, no? Con piccole differenze. Ci siamo divertiti tanto, ci è piaciuto tantissimo fare questo lavoro di ricostruzione di un'epoca.
So besides the fact that there is a different musical style in each movie, it was the first time that we did a costume movies. So each movie we had to recreate the scenes and the costumes, and we really enjoyed also doing this work of recreation.
I think maybe it's time to unveil this tiny little gem of a teaser that you brought from your upcoming film. Maybe a couple of words to introduce it, and then we launch the clip.
Yes, the word to introduce is I wanted to put my hands, mettere le mani avanti, non so se c'è un termine in inglese.
Trying to shield myself.
I want to shield myself. We are editing right now our next movie. After the trilogy of Diabolic, that was a little bit a journey out of our characteristic of filmmakers. We needed to get back to our roots, to our style, to our way. So we went back to a story that touches a genre movie, a new genre movie, but always mixed with comedy and with ironic look on the world. And this movie speaks about football and also about Palmi. That is a small city in the south of Italy where our mom comes from, and where we feel that it's our city. It's our. Also, we talk about the story of football in this small town in Calabria, but we wanted to do something special for this focus that this festival honored us to honored us to, I don't know, I can't construct the phrase, but the festival honored us with this focus, and we want to give something back. So at the last second, in a movie that is editing, so there's no color correction, there's no real, we brought a scene, it's 4-minute scene of that film, with a little bit of adjustment at the beginning and at the end, one little writing. And I think that we do that with the self-confidence of it's difficult of being good persons, and that the content of art doesn't have by force to be a political statement. And that's the two things, yes. The idea that we are totally in line with all these new values, no, that the world is showing off from one side, luckily, no, to give us a better convivenza, non mi viene, scusami.
Samenleving in Dutch.
Co-living, no? Among different people of different genders, of different origins, of different social classes, no? All this is what is going on, finally. But this don't have to be confused with the funny incorrectness that art has to keep. Torino Boys is our first movie. Before the U-turn of Zora la Vampira, and we were called to make a film because a production, Giorgio Bellocchio, that now disappeared, together with his dad Marco, that has been here for before us. They were producing 4 films about immigration in Italy. And they called us because we were music video directors that they knew. I've been also personally assistant of Marco Bellocchio. And we had a close relationship with the Nigerian community. We are friends with the Nigerian community. So they called us to say, since you know the Nigerian community, we are doing this series of 4 films. Why don't you come and try to write something about the Nigerian community? And the first thing that we thought is that what we wanted to do was very different because you can see the immigration as many people call it, the immigration problem, from left or from right. From right is too much immigration. From left, we should help people in difficulty. And we said, what if we talk about these communities that live here in a different way? We take off the word problem, which doesn't mean denying the existence of problems. Everybody has problems. And to talk about this community just as our community that we met, that we mixed with, that live among us, and that factually, in Italy then, maybe now it's a little bit better, but left or right, both of them, they created a detachment. Because if you have to pity people, these people will not be your brother, will be your son. I don't know. And if you want to chase him, of course, he will not be your brother. No? And what we noticed hanging around with them is that they live their life interesting, full of interesting things to discover, full of fun also. And the Italians were missing it. And so we showed a community that even if it's in Italy, they were living their own life. They didn't give a damn of what Italians think about them. They were living their own life, and maybe that's what, even today, politically, talking about wokeness, is something that should be said a little bit more. It doesn't mean that if you come from a poor country that you need us. Maybe we need you. And in that movie, first thing we did that, we showed the community in our own real essence without any political statement. Because I don't think an African has to have the damnation that every time you talk about him, you have to make a political statement. Sometimes you can talk about the other things, about his life, his music. That's the first intention. Second intention, it was giving to the European culture the knowledge of African time. That's what the movie is about. The movie is a romantic comedy, but especially talks of a conception of time that is very different to what Europeans have. And in the movie, you see one Italian boy, one Italian guy that is totally stressed throughout the movie because his African friends want to go somewhere, and he realizes that they will never go where they want to go. And he suffers for them, and they don't suffer at all because they went there for one reason, and at the end they did another one, and they are still happy. And I think this is something about Africans that, for example, Europeans can learn.
Sì, Marco ha detto non voleva fare un film politico, ma alla fine è un film politico, no? Proprio perché non è un film politico, lo è, ce ne siamo accorti forse dopo, perché a noi ci è venuto spontaneo raccontare un tipo di storia all'interno della loro comunità, come erano, come vivevano, come noi vedevamo loro, come noi quando stavamo con loro vivevamo poi tra l'altro frequentandoli. Però è un film politico soprattutto 30 anni fa, era in Italia complicata questa cosa, di raccontare solamente una storia d'amore tra loro e basta, senza raccontare i loro problemi. Quindi è molto più politico di molti altri film fatti all'epoca che erano proprio di denuncia sociale. No?
So, well, actually, it is a kind of sort of a political movie, especially because it did not want to be a political movie, ended up being a kind of a political movie. The difference is that we did it in a spontaneous way because we embedded ourselves into the community, so we're living with them, and it ended up being a sort of a political movie, even more 30 years ago. At the end of the day, we just told a love story, and it ended up being much more than that, and even more political than movies that were intended to be political movies.
It's 2 p.m. sharp. There's no time for another question. We should have been already maybe a bit out of this room, but I still want to thank Antonio, Marco, and Giovanni for his assistance, and you for this wonderful conversation, and the IFFR for hosting the Manetti Focus.
And Jonah for being able to have a deep conversation with two idiots, which is difficult.
Thank you.